I want your calls on this. Should we bulldoze the green belt in order to build new homes? 0207 862 2222 is the number to give us a ring with your thoughts on this. Now, the Labour Party has set out a plan for building on the green belt in an attempt to boost housing supply. They've also claimed that it will help them to improve green spaces. Now, under the proposal, councils will be required to prioritise building homes on brownfield sites and poor quality areas in the green belt, which Labour are calling the grey belt. Now, they say that it will help improve 1.5 million, it will help provide 1.5 million new homes. Are you a fan of this, Michael?
Yes, with qualifications. So I do think that we do need to build a lot more houses. I'm pretty much in favour of doing anything that makes that possible. My concern with this proposal from the Labour Party is I think because they are so unwilling to spend any money, what they're hoping they can do is deregulate and let the private developers do it all. And I don't think that's going to provide us with enough houses nor the right quality houses. So I'd say a little bit of deregulation on the side is okay, but I would prefer the Labour Party to be promising to pledge to build 100,000 council homes a year. We used to do that. We built 200,000 council homes a year for a couple of years in the 50s. So we can go back to that kind of number. But yeah, I mean, I think lots of the countryside looks quite similar. So I would
just green, too much greenery for you.
Well, no, what I would do, I would get a bit
house.
less. I would get a bit looser with the green belt, and then I would rewild lots of countryside because I think we pay farmers to keep fields essentially open. So I would say those fields which we're paying farmers to not grow anything on, why don't we plant forests there, and that can make up for the few fields that we build.
You can't build houses on forests, can you?
No, but what I'm saying is we build on the fields. And then sort of to make this environmentally neutral, we then rewild some of the fields as well as building on some of the other ones.
Well, grey belt was a new term to me today, and as far as I can see, it is the green belt, part of the green belt where they've had maybe a petrol station or they've had an old car park that's not being used anymore. So it's green belt that has already been built that can be ripped up and used for a new housing estate. That seems reasonable, Mike.
But it's very much more expensive to build houses there because turning the site over to housing is very much more expensive. There's far too much NIMBYism in this country. I've said this before, if you get on a train at King's Cross or Euston in London...
You're not going to tell me the countryside all looks too samey, are you?
No, all I'm saying is, and you go to the northwest, to Liverpool or Everton, if I'm watching football, once you've got out of Greater London, there's nothing but fields on either side, mostly speaking, right? There's loads of land in this country. But the problem is we've got this obsession about the southeast and nobody wants to spread out. Now, after the war, we needed new housing. This isn't just about
the southeast, though. That we're talking about the green belt that surrounds Manchester.
I think it is about the southeast. What I'm saying is give more incentives to builders to build outside of the southeast. People are coming to this country, want to live here, got to persuade them to go up north. After the Second World War, new towns are springing up all over the place. Milton Keynes, Crawley,
Brazil famously just started new cities. Why don't we do that?
That's exactly what I'm saying. And, I've had this brilliant idea, which nobody has picked up on yet, that when people come to this country, give them some kind of financial incentive to go away with other people who've come and develop your own communities, right?
Hold on.
Build new towns.
That's sounding a little bit like apartheid to some degree.
Living in
don't you want everyone to live together?
Of course I want people to live together, but there's not room for them all to live together in the towns we have now. So why not go and build new towns, invite everybody who wants to live there to a nice new home?
I think I've worked out why that's not getting a huge amount of traction.
Why is that?
Well, because it does sound a little apartheid-esque.
No,
it sounds like you're segregation
and
you're separating people out.
No, I'm talking about people coming from all over the world, integrating and mixing. Why not? And because
there might be a lot of British people that want to live in those new towns as well.
Of course there should be.
I think that you just need to work on the framing. I'm up for the new towns.
No, you give incentives to people to move out of the southeast and move to the glorious north of England, where the quality of life is often much better.
OK, well, listen, you both seem to think that it might be a good idea with certain caveats, OK. But let's talk to Lizziebundred Woodward from the Campaign to Protect Rural England. Lizzie, you don't want to see any building on Greenbelt whatsoever, including these petrol stations or old car parks.
That's not strictly true. So I think we need more information from Labour as to how they're classifying grey belt. So if it is indeed brownfield land, so land like car parks or petrol stations, then planning policy already allows you to build on this type of land. And CPRE are wholly supported from building brownfield. That's what we want to see, and protecting the countryside and green sites. And we know that at least 37,000 homes have been developed on brownfield land within the Greenbelt since 2009. In addition to this, we estimate there are sufficient sort of shovel-ready brownfield sites to accommodate around 1.2 million new homes across the country. So if Labour are adopting a brownfield first policy, then we'd say go for it. If they are, however, talking about places that are perhaps less beautiful within the Greenbelt, we would argue they're no less valuable. And as has already been discussed, the Greenbelt, it produces agricultural farmland. It's also and this urban areas response to climate change impacts, floodplains, carbon sequestration, etc., etc. And it's also the big back garden for 30 million people across England, which is used as access to nature and recreational space. We know it's so important post-pandemic to have access to green space for your mental and physical health. And we believe if we didn't already have a policy like the Greenbelt in place, we would want to invent it.
Okay, well, first of all, I mean, building on brownfield sites sounds great. It is a lot more expensive than building on the green belt. Also, you're saying that there would be enough houses for 1.2 million. That's not going to be enough long term. So what's your long-term strategy when it comes to building new homes if you don't want the green belt touched?
So I think 1.2 million is a good place to start, right? We would want to see any future government adopt a brownfield first policy. I think the idea that homes aren't already being built in the Greenbelt is a bit of a misnomer. We estimate the sort of current rates of development of both current and former greenfield lands. So that is fields of between sort of 6,000 and 10,000 homes per year. They tend to be in areas that aren't connected to public transport, that don't have adequate public services. Perhaps local people have objected to those developments for those exact reasons. Also, they don't tend to be particularly energy efficient. They tend to have 2 homes per garage. So I think in the long term, we need a plan, a national spatial plan or strategy to direct new development to places where those services are in place. We need to front load infrastructure to ensure that schools, shops, GP surgeries are already available for new housing. And that new housing should be built around public transport hubs. We'd also encourage intensification and densification of housing around key public transport hubs and town centres. Again, post-COVID, we've seen a bit of a decline in our high streets and local centres, actually by building and densifying those high streets. Would enable shops to have footfall, would enable services to stay in use, particularly in rural areas that have seen quite a big decline.
What about Mike's idea of just starting a new city somewhere in England? Just picking a spot.
We understand Labour are proposing new towns. Obviously, there was a new towns programme in the 70s with Milton Keynes and Stevenage. We would like to see more detail, but certainly a planned approach is what's needed, rather than this sort of unconstrained sprawl that we have at the minute, where the Greenbelt's just being nibbled away with no sort of plan for how our urban areas and indeed villages and towns should look in sort of 20, 30 years, when we're all going to be living very differently.
Mike.
Lizzie, have you considered the position of young people in this country? They've been priced out of the house market altogether. And I think by, your rigorous adaptation of the Greenbelt, you're giving no hope to young people today or in the next 2 or 3 generations if we can't massively increase our stock of housing. And to do that, we've got to release more land that's not being used effectively at the moment. There's plenty of that in this country.
Sure, I am indeed one of those young people. My rent's about to go up, I think about £100 a month. But releasing a Greenbelt, whether it's dreary or rubbish, isn't going to solve that, because we know that private developers aren't delivering affordable housing. We have absolutely decimated our housing stock. The likes of Leicester City Council announced a housing emergency in 2022. Leicester doesn't have a Greenbelt. The reasons for that was right to buy. Private developers not providing affordable housing, and also the council hasn't been replacing the stock, let alone building more. So actually, I would argue we need a more targeted approach to building new housing. It's not a lack of land, it's a lack of suitable housing.
Okay, Lizziebundred Woodward, thank you very much for your time there from the Campaign to Protect Rural England. We're getting lots of your calls through. I want to fire through as many as I can. Kath from Swansea, what's your view on the green belt? Do we need to keep it protected, or actually are there a few spots we could build some houses?
No, don't touch it.
Okay.
What's
the alternative?
Well, I was speaking to the lady before, and I used to be a home help, and I used to go around loads of houses, and it was mostly council houses, and nearly every house I went to was occupied by one elderly person. 3-bedroom properties, 2-bedroom properties.
Okay.
And that's all they did. They waited from week to week for me to come around. I was the only person that they saw. So surely there must be hundreds, if not thousands, of council houses that are occupied by one person.
I don't doubt that might be true, Kath, but what you're suggesting there is we just round up the single occupancy houses, round up all those individuals and put them in some sort of commune so those houses are available for families?
Not a commune. We've got one or two blocks of flats down here. They've got their own little, they've got a living room, a bedroom, a toilet, a kitchen.
How are you going to, but there's memories in these houses, how are you going to ask all of these older people to move out?
If you were in a council house on your own and they built these, a couple in each community, they could be saying, right, you've got the option, either you can stay in your property or we've got a lovely little flat, you can go downstairs. There's a coffee shop, there's a hairdresser's.
Okay, there's other ways of doing it. Are you in support of that, Michael?
So I think it's a very interesting point, and we do have a big problem. I suppose it's leading to say it's a problem. We have an issue in this country where there are lots of homes which are underoccupied. So you've got lots of elderly couples or one elderly person, their kids have left the home, and they've got lots of empty bedrooms, and then you've got lots of young families who can't buy a house. I would say the bigger problem is actually in the private sector, where you've got people who own a home and they want to sit on it until the end of their life so that their kids can inherit it. I think there is a way of reframing this where it is a bit win-win, because I don't think we should be pushing anyone out of their homes. If someone wants to stay in their home their whole life in their community, I think it's really important we let them. But we could build loads and loads of flats and give people a financial incentive to move to a very nearby flat to downsize.
To basically people potentially.
To downsize and still live in the same place.
Kath, it's an interesting problem. I just want to rattle through as many calls. We're running out of time. Rosie from East Lothian, what's your thoughts?
Hi, Storm. Basically, I feel that we do need additional housing. Totally accept that. But for me, I think there are so many abandoned buildings, abandoned homes throughout the country, everywhere within any town and city, you see it there. I feel it would be better to repurpose that land and use that land to build affordable housing.
Rosie, you're kind of in line. Actually, you're probably in line with most people. Certainly, Lizzie, that we just spoken to, where you're talking about brownfield sites here. The problem is that can be very expensive, but I take your point, Rosie. Lindsay from Somerset, what do you think about building on Greenbelt?
Well, I think I'm similar to most people that have called in, that I'm quite against it. And it was interesting, the lady talking about the elderly people in larger accommodation, because over 40 years ago, I worked in a housing association where we used to buy large properties that were occupied by elderly people and pay slightly less for the property on the basis that we used to rehouse the elderly person into sheltered accommodation and then convert their larger properties into flats.
Yeah.
And I was doing this sort of nearly 50 years ago in Bristol and Bath.
That's interesting.
There's so much accommodation that needs to be converted, done up, and we shouldn't even be contemplating the green belt.
Well, that's interesting. I mean, there's lots of people calling up with lots of ideas of how we could create more housing for people without potentially building on the green belt or these grey belts. Lindsay, thank you very much for your call. It turns out it's been happening for a while. Thank you very much for all your calls. We are going to be moving on now.